back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is Thursday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. That's a Star Wars thing. I'm going to say it all day because I'm a big Star Wars fan. I can. All right, so we're not finished, if you're not finished, with the James Comey hearing.
He says he's sick to his stomach, but that he would still do it again tomorrow, bringing forth Hillary Clinton's, the Homa Abedin Wiener email thing.
There was a great debate. I have a fabulous staff at all levels, and one of my junior lawyers said, should you consider that what you're about to do may help elect Donald Trump president? And I said, thank you for raising that. Not for a moment. Because down that path lies the death of the FBI as an independent institution in America. I can't consider for a second whose political fortunes will be affected in what way. We have to ask ourselves, what is the right thing to do? And then do that thing. I'm very proud of the way we debated it. And at the end of the day, everyone on my team agreed we have to tell Congress that we are restarting this in a hugely significant way.
But nothing came of it. Nothing came of it because, I think, in all honesty, it was like a bunch of people had to fall on a bunch of swords just to get Hillary Clinton. This was actually a way to keep, in my opinion, to keep Hillary Clinton from going to prison.
Absolutely.
She wanted to be elected, but she actually wanted to not go to prison more.
I think that most people would go with that.
So, yeah. All right, so Comey has called the WikiLeaks porn. He has decided that the FBI can decide what is journalism and what is journalistic porn, as he called it, his words. And he said that WikiLeaks did not call them, and that real journalists called them to see whether something would be national security or somebody's life would be in danger. But Julian Assange tweeted out that they did call the FBI over Vault 7. So,
An important focus of our attention.
oh, I'm trying to make it bigger. Sorry. Let's see. Species
I intentionally left almost half of my time for you to sort of wax broadly for a minute. There is room for reasonable people to disagree about at what point an allegedly journalistic organization crosses a line to become some sort of a tool of foreign intelligence. There are Americans, well-meaning, thoughtful people who think that WikiLeaks might just be a journalistic outfit. Can you explain why that is not your view?
Yeah, and again, I want to be careful that I don't prejudice any future proceeding. It's an important question because all of us care deeply about the First Amendment and the ability of a free press to get information about our work and publish it. To my mind, it crosses a line when it moves from being about trying to educate a public and instead just becomes about intelligence porn, frankly. Just
Intelligence porn. Okay, what I'm going to translate that as, is as them spewing out intelligence for the lust and consumption of the people. When you actually spew out intelligence that the FBI and the CIA is keeping hidden from the American public, that because they're not doing anything about it and they should be, and you publish that, it is not for the lust and consumption of the people. It is to give them the knowledge that is required. There is a total difference. WikiLeaks did not do this because they were trying to put out intelligence porn or to incite people and get them all riled up. It was like, it was the same thing with Edward Snowden. Oh, I'm so sorry. But guess what? If they're going to intentionally deceive the American people and do illegal activity, we have to know about it.
Vault 7 has shown us the ability that they have to
It's intelligent
make
porn.
it look like Russia sent these, hacked the DNC, hacked whatever you want to say, our election. And
they're personally spying on us. They're spying on presidential candidates like Donald Trump. They're doing all of these things. And of course, he's going to say it's intelligence porn for the American people to find out that we're spying on them.
Right.
Pushing out information about sources and methods without regard to interest without regard to the First Amendment values that normally underlie press reporting, and simply becomes a conduit for the Russian intelligence services or some of...
How did it have to do with the Russians?
We have kept you people in the dark for very long. And now the WikiLeaks is letting you know what is going on, and we don't like it one bit.
Other adversary of the United States just to push out information to damage the United States. And I realize, reasonable people just said...
It wasn't pushing out information to damage the United States. It was actually to help give us the information so we could repair the damage that you and your people caused.
Struggle to draw a line, but surely there's conduct that's so far to the side of that line that we can all agree there's nothing that even smells journalist about some of this conduct.
So if you could map that continuum, there are clearly members of the IC that have at different points in the past leaked classified information. That is an illegal act, correct?
Correct.
When American journalists court and solicit that information, have they violated any law by asking people in the IC to potentially leak information that is potentially classified?
That conduct is not treated by the U.S. government as criminal conduct. Now, I've been asked in other contexts, isn't it true that the espionage statute has no carve-out for journalists? That's true. But at least in my lifetime, the Department of Justice's view has been news gathering and legitimate news reporting is not covered, is not going to be investigated or prosecuted as a criminal act. That's how it's thought of.
So an investigative reporter taking advantage of and celebrating the liberties that we have under the First Amendment at the Washington Post or at the Omaha World Herald or at the Lincoln Journal Star or at the New York Times, trying to talk to people in the IC and get the maximum amount of information that they possibly can out of them to inform the public. It is not the burden of an American journalist to discern whether or not the member of the IC is leaking information that might be classified. The journalist can legitimately seek information, and it's not their job to police it. The member of the US IC that leaks classified information has broken a law.
Right. I think the clear legal obligation rests on those people who are in the government in possession of intelligence, classified information. It's not the journalist's burden.
Okay.
Our focus is and should be on the leakers, not those that are obtaining it as part of legitimate news gathering.
So I want to hear this part one more time, and I know that the chairman has indulged me. I'm at and past time, but the American journalist who's seeking this information differs from Assange and WikiLeaks how?
In that there's at least a portion, and people can argue that maybe this conduct WikiLeaks has engaged in the past that's closer to regular news gathering, but in my view, a huge portion of WikiLeaks' activities has nothing to do with legitimate news gathering, informing the public, commenting on important...
The difference is that WikiLeaks doesn't spin the information. They let you decide.
So literally what they do is instead of like bees, if you don't know, they go out and they gather nectar from a flower and they eat it and then they regurgitate it back up and they give you honey. What the press does is they go and they eat something and they regurgitate it back up and they give you throw up. Okay, what WikiLeaks does is they go and gather the nectar in a nice little bowl and they say, here, you may consume it and do with it what you will. And that apparently is not real journalism.
That's the best kind of journalism. I mean, we actually give you an opinion. I feel like our
we totally give you an
journalism
opinion. But it's honey.
Is on a lower level than just plain,
Yeah.
here's the facts, you decide.
Exactly.
public controversies, but it's simply about releasing classified information to damage the United States of America. And people sometimes get cynical about journalists. American journalists do not do that. They will almost always call us before they publish classified information and say, is there anything about this that's going
So did the New York Times and Washington Post do that? Did they do that?
Mm-hmm.
put lives in danger?
He said almost always.
It's going to jeopardize government people, military people, or innocent civilians anywhere in the world, and then work with us to try and accomplish their important First Amendment goals while safeguarding those interests. This activity I'm talking about, WikiLeaks, involves no such considerations whatsoever. It's what I said to intelligence.
Now let's remind them.
Assange said that they actually contacted them about Vault 7.
Porn, just push it out in order to damage.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to bring you on that. And Assange...
Comey needs to be fired yesterday, a year ago. He needs to just be gone.
Comey says the only reason Assange has not been apprehended yet is because he's inside an embassy. All right, so here's a couple more.
I'd like to talk a little bit about WikiLeaks. It seemed pretty clear.
actually. We played that one. So this is when we were talking about the Trump dossier.
The FBI Director James Comey, in the hot seat before the Senate Judiciary Committee, said he has no regrets about his letter to Congress announcing the Hillary Clinton email probe was reopened.
So help me God.
Even if it affected the outcome of the election.
It makes me mildly nauseous to think that we might have had some impact on the election, but honestly, it wouldn't change the decision. Everybody who disagrees with me has to come back to October 28th with me and stare at this and tell me what you would do. Would you speak or would you conceal? And I could be wrong, but we honestly made a decision between those two choices that even in hindsight, and this has been one of the world's most painful experiences, I would make the same decision. I would not.
The man is lying through his teeth, you guys. This is all about covering Hillary Clinton up.
And to make himself look like the good guy.
This is all a sham.
Conceal that on October 28th from the Congress.
And Comey made the stunning admission his lack of confidence in Justice Department leadership after Attorney General Loretta Lynch met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac, paved the way for his unprecedented press conference last July, announcing he didn't recommend charges.
The department leadership could not credibly complete the investigation and decline prosecution without grievous damage to the American people's confidence in the justice system. That was a hard call for me to make, to call the Attorney General that.
So, getting to the truth and getting to justice is not as important as the American people's confidence in the Justice Department.
Right. We have no confidence.
Morning and say I'm about to do a press conference and I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to say. And I said to her, I hope someday you'll understand why I think I have to do this. But look, I wasn't loving this. I knew this would be disastrous for me personally, but I thought this is the best way to protect these institutions that we care so much about.
I want to start.
Democrats fired back, asking him why he didn't also publicly acknowledge the ongoing probe into Russians' connections.
So Russia, we hear it all the time. Well, you know what? I'm going to play you this here.
Got mildly nauseous today listening to his testimony one more time. James Comey is a danger to the country.
Yes.
He surrounds himself with his own cult of personality. He believes that he is the last righteous man left standing. When he held that news conference on July 5th and accused Hillary Clinton and then exonerated her, he violated every rule and regulation of the Department of Justice. He should have been fired that day. He never should have been permitted to stay after the inauguration. He should be fired now for the testimony that he's given over the last few months. That July 5th news conference was the original sin. From it, everything else followed. He says today, what would you have done on October the 28th? Mr. Director, I would have done nothing because I never would have held the July 5th news conference, which forced you to send 2 letters to Congress.
It's absolutely insane. It's just a weird situation here.
And this is why Leah and I constantly come to you to expose. Maybe you guys don't quite understand what the deep state is. All right, James Comey represents it. He epitomizes it. Okay,
He's the face, and then there's a body and legs.
he is essentially an arm that helps control our government. Okay,
Right.
and he's not elected by anybody.
Right.
Carry on.
Struggled as we got closer to the end of it with a number of things that had gone on, some of which I can't talk about yet, that made me worry that the department leadership could not credibly complete the investigation and decline prosecution without grievous damage
That's the one we just
to
covered.
the American
Yeah.
people's confidence in the justice system. And then the capper was, and I'm not picking on the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, who I like very much, but her meeting with President Clinton on that airplane was the capper for me.
They're just throwing out a bunch of little things.
And here we are with, this is the actual tweet from Julian Assange, where he says, James Comey just misled the Senate while under oath when he said that WikiLeaks doesn't call us. We did over Vault 7, and I know he knows it.
Right. So, I think that's the last one I wanted to bring you guys. All the rest of it was Trump and Russia, and I think I'm not going to play the part where he talks about Russia is like the greatest threat that America faces
Because
right
it's all
now.
lies.
And I can't stomach it. I can't stomach the lies. It really hurts my
I was cold. call my name.